I'm John Iannuzzi, producer of Jim Campbell Radio. In just a few short weeks, Jim Campbell Radio host becomes Jim Campbell, published author, as McGraw Hill releases his new book, Madoff Talks. So far this hour, you've heard archival interviews where Jim explained to fellow talk host Frankie Boyer how the book writing process unfolded in its infancy. Now for the audience, Jim gives us an update on the book's release this April. Through the pandemic, I guess you were very productive. Give us an update. I guess the question first off is, did the pandemic allow you to be more productive? And can you believe you're done?
First off, the pandemic actually allowed me to be very productive because I essentially wrote the entire book January through May of last year. And I was able to basically completely focus. My day was write and work out. And that's all I did. Didn't set foot out of the house.
Well, you did your radio show, too.
Yeah, that's right, where I did.
So, Jim, what is your advice to people, I guess, because I have watched you through this entire process from when this was just a germ, a seed, a mustard seed, to where it is now. To people who want to write a book, they have a subject, they want to do this. What is the first step? And then I want you to walk us through the last couple of years.
All right, the first thing I'd say is don't do it. It's an incredible marathon. It's very stressful. But have a clear idea of what you want to do and what you bring to the table, because it's very hard to get a book published right now, particularly if you go through an established publisher versus publishing for yourself. But I had a vision for it. I even had to fight for it a bit with McGraw Hill, my publisher, because they were focused on just all the Madoff access, and I was determined to tell the entire story of the failure of Wall Street, the regulatory agencies in Washington, what happened to the victims, and put the whole thing together for the first time on the Madoff story. So stick with it. It's a marathon. Believe in yourself. Have a clear vision for it, and then just do it.
Or we did just play some of the times that you've been a guest talking about this entire process. First off, how does it feel to be a guest sometimes on your own show? And second, an update as to where we are in spring of 2021, which is the time that the book is coming out. It's here.
To be a guest on my own show, essentially, is it's an interesting thing because I'm used to controlling the dialogue, and I'm very curious, so I love asking questions. But I've found that the interviews I've done with the book, with our stations, the questions have been great and very thoughtful and dead on. As to where we are within the book, we've just finished the final revisions. It is actually going to the printer. It will be at Amazon on April the 27th, and all the pre-orders then will be honored first. And no one, by the way, should have been charged until they go out the door from the warehouse at Amazon. But April 27th will be the launch, and we will be going into full interview mode at that time.
Now, I don't think this is a unique situation, but there probably was enough material for 2 books, right? Isn't that how that always goes?
That's a sore subject with me, too. My contract was 55,000 words. In order to do the overall architecture of the Madoff story, that was going to be way too short. What did I end up doing? They allowed me to go to 100,000 words to double it. What did I turn in? 150,000 words. My editor came back, I'm not even going to open it until you cut 50,000 words. And so I got down and had to cut 50,000 words. And I have to say, it did not do the damage that I expected. The book is as good or maybe better. But yeah, that was 50,000 words is an awful lot to cut after you put that all together.
Editing audio, I know that sometimes months later I think back and think, wow, I really wish I could have left this in, or, we made it into an overtime segment or something like that. But most of the time, they're right. Most of the time, you can tell the story, right, in a more encapsulated, shorter, punched up version, right?
My first reaction, I was almost outraged that she wouldn't even read it. I thought it was really, really good, and I've never written a book, so I'm pretty tough on myself. Cut the 50,000 out. And only a couple times have I felt like, oh, geez, this was in there, and where did it go? and I wish that it could have been back there. But basically, I think it's just as good, and I guess people don't read long books anymore. So this is going to be about 300-some pages, as opposed to, I think, about 400, 450.
You said you got a publisher, but how does one do that? What is the first step in finding someone? I'm sure it's not as easy as I found a publisher, right?
It's a very hit or miss process. When I had 400 pages of communications with Bernie Madoff, I said, I got to figure out what to do with this. I've never written a book, but I've got to find a way to leverage it. And I got an agent recommended to me. He said, I can't sell it. We got a second agent. He said, haven't had any luck selling it. I got a third agent. All of these recommended. The third agent got a signed contract and bids from 2 other major publishing houses inside of 1 week, which is unprecedented. And they were willing to give me almost anything I wanted, he said. And frankly, it was kind of a miracle, but it did take a while. It took the third agent to be able to get that done.
Now, you've explained on the air, and again, the listeners just heard you talking with Bill O'Shaughnessy about how the relationship was formed. Where is the relationship with the Madoff family now that you have, or who is left in the Madoff family? Because quite frankly, we would not be sitting here talking about this had you not had the unparalleled access that you did.
Yes, in fact, I'm the only media source that had access inside the family, which ended up being very interesting because I had a perspective the FBI, for instance, didn't. Just to give you a quick example, the FBI was convinced Bernie was training Andrew and Madoff to take over the business.
Andrew and
Mark Madoff.
Mark, right.
We're being trained to take over the business. In other words, we're complicit. I knew that was not true, but they did not.
And now they're both gone.
Sacrificed to the altar of their father's criminal enterprise. Where are the Madoffs right now? This is another interesting story. Ruth Madoff backed me doing this book all along. She introduced me to Bernie in prison, even at a time she wasn't really communicating with him. She backed the book when the prison blocked our communications in the middle all of a sudden. And then I called her right after I got the contract, and she says, I'm not going to talk anymore. And she has receded completely from public view. Went back to Bernie. Now, Bernie, I'd had a gap of a year or two because I had to go try and sell the book and then investigate everything he told me to see how much was true versus lies. I come back to him and he says, Jim, the family's asked me not to talk anymore. So the Madoffs are not talking. Would have been helpful after I'd done all the investigation if they were accessible. On the other hand, there's going to be no other media access to them. This is going to be the only book that has the Madoff's story within it.
And this is a silly question, but how do you authenticate that these communications are with Bernie? I mean, it's literally his email address in prison. Is that?
Well, first off, I have tons of handwritten, long, single-spaced letters, which obviously is from Bernie. And
so you were pen pals with Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, we were pen pals. And the second part is he has to approve, and the prison has to approve an email relationship. It's called Core Links. It's the email system with the correctional system, the federal system of the U.S. And so that's where we got. I have 500 pages of communications probably with Bernie and these beautiful handwritten letters. I'll tell you one interesting story. At the same time, I was getting 6-page, 7-page, single-spaced, beautiful handwritten letters. He wrote a handwritten letter to his son, Andrew, and his fiancée, Catherine Hooper. One sentence, I'm so sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
Not even love, Dad. One sentence. He doesn't even know me, essentially, and I was getting 6 pages. That shows you how tough it was for him to come clean to his own family.
Do you think he found it cathartic? Was this like therapy talking to you?
I think he was Nixonian in that, and he could not stop himself from trying to rationalize it. He'd start off, Jim, I really feel bad for what I did to my victims, and then 20 minutes of it was real investment. They were greedy. I was pressured to do this.
Yeah.
And it was all became self-rationalization. By the way, there's one comparison that's interesting with Donald Trump, which is...
Wait, who brought up Donald Trump? You brought up Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, what did you just say? You just asked me something that led
You
to
said
that.
Nixonian.
Oh, yeah. What?
You talked about Nixon, but Trump. What about Trump?
Oh, okay. Now, you were asking about was it easy to get him to talk? And Madoff would never, ever accept any kind of investment loss, which was not good for a money manager because it meant he was fudging results all the time. Trump, from Queens as well as Bernie, could not accept an election loss, almost to these obsessive, irrational nature. Come on, Bernie, we know exactly what's going on now, you know.
What did you have to ask permission to use the contents of these email?
That's a good question. Right at the beginning, he said, I said my terms, which is, Bernie, this is a chance for you to talk to history, but I'm going to vet every single thing you say, and I'm going to print whatever ends up being the truth. And he came back, Jim, I accept your conditions, and I must say that Ruth and Andrew have vouched for your sincerity.
I'm John Iannuzzi, producer of Jim Campbell Radio. We wrap up this hour as Jim Campbell explains how he went from an idea of a book on Bernard Madoff to getting exclusive access behind the prison walls with the Ponzi scheme king to the book hitting shelves in just a few short weeks.
I said my terms, which is, Bernie, this is a chance for you to talk to history, but I'm going to vet every single thing you say, and I'm going to print whatever ends up being the truth. And he came back, Jim, I accept your conditions, and I must say that Ruth and Andrew have vouched for your sincerity. So basically, he gave me carte blanche.
Did he know that you're a radio host?
Yes. He knew everything about me, particularly since he didn't know me when I started. And the family made the decision to trust me, and I don't know why. And Bernie is obviously not going to like the book.
What was the first correspondence like?
It was interesting because right off the bat, I started testing him, and I was amazed that not only would he answer everything, but his recall, his brilliance was just off the charts, coupled with, I guess like any good con man, he's very charming. And whether he's telling the truth, the charm of Bernie is not only is he brilliant, not only did he have total recall, but whether he's lying or telling the truth, he's very charming.
So that was the first correspondence.
Yeah, the first correspondence was basically that he was going to respond to anything I asked, and I was just impressed with his recall and his brilliance.
And what year was this?
About 2010, I think. The book is a 12-year journey, if you think about it, because I got all the communications with Bernie. Then it took us a couple years to find this third agent. Then I had to go do the research investigation, right, to the whole rest of the story and what was the truth. Then I had to write it. And then we've been in the editing process since. It's like making a movie.
It is. And you know, it's so funny when I call into one of our sister stations to do a promo for your forensic talk show in the morning, you know, the joke is, where's Jim been? But we all know you've been knee deep in this. You know, this is all encompassing. Is your wife tired of hearing about it yet? Has she read it?
No, she's not read it. And I had to pressure her to pre-order one. But she's been very supportive, though, because from the very beginning, when I was driving around in my vending business to customers, and I was hearing talk radio, and I said, you know, there's no talk radio that's not on one or the other extreme. And then I suddenly heard about this Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and I said, you know, someday maybe I should go there. She said, why don't you go right now? And I did. And that's what began the whole thing. Yeah. As I've said in my book, where I acknowledge your help, that without this platform, I would have had no credibility to do a book. And not only that, I have found that I have so much goodwill in the industry, that people that have helped blurb for the book, that have helped open the door for me, that are going to help do interviews now. All of this investment I've made in radio, you can see it coming together.
That's really nice to hear. And I think that our stations will appreciate being a part of it then. So that is the first, that we talked about the first correspondence. What was the last time you talked to Bernie?
The last time I talked to Bernie was just that the book was all set, it was going to go, and I'd like to come down and visit you face to face, right? And he said, you know, Jim, I'm not talking anymore about the book, but I'll have you down here, right? And put yourself down as a friend of the family because they're not allowing any media in, right? And so submitted the thing to the warden's office. and they researched it and came back. This guy's writing a book on Madoff. He's prohibited from visiting here.
But you had enough.
I had tons of stuff.
Enough, yeah.
It's just I would like to have, gotten face to face. The prison vetoed it both times, really, that we tried to do that. And it would have been nice. The only thing would have been nice is once I researched it and saw what Bernie and Ruth had told me, I would have been able to go back and say, Ruth, you told me this. Let me just follow up on that.
Yeah.
Particularly regards one issue. And obviously I couldn't do that.
Where is he now?
Bernie is probably in the medical wing in the Butner medium security prison in Butner, North Carolina. He is rumored to be terminally ill. He applied for compassionate early release to President Trump and was turned down.
That would have, probably better, because then that would have changed your ending of the book would have.
It wouldn't have changed the ending. The thing that
Or did you want him to be released?
Actually, the truth is, I obviously.
Would you have given him the pardon?
No. But to be honest, my wife was hoping he would pass away because it would be good for the book sales. I obviously can't bring myself to feel that. But, I maintain that Bernie, if he would have shown genuine remorse, come totally clean, the American people are very forgiving. He's never going to be forgiven, but it would have been respected a bit, and he just won't do that.
I think it's tremendous that you've dedicated so much to this project. I know it's going to bear fruit. It is definitely one of those things that when I talk to people about it, they're excited about it, and the time is here. I remember talking to people about this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
In another year, we're here. So tell the people listening on WBTN, on WADK, on NewEnglandTalkRadio.net, tell them how they can pre-order and what to expect.
Okay. First of all, I am very excited it's coming out. It's very hard to believe. I've seen a galley in paperback form, so that is real. I'm waiting to get a hardcover in my hands. You can go to Amazon. You can Google Jim Campbell or Madoff Talks, any of those. You'll come right up to the book. You can pre-order it, and you will not be billed a cent until they ship it out. And I think it's a good read. I've written it like a detective story, so it is a fun read. It is not just a, quote, business book. And Jonathan Alter, who's a presidential historian, written books on FDR and Jimmy Carter, read the book and has given us a very nice endorsement. He told me he read the book in one sitting.
And you do that, right? You can burn through a book in a sitting.
If I get really into it, I can burn through it in one sitting. But
I've done it once in my life. Yeah.
It is. This is a 300-page book.
It's a compliment.
It's of a man of that stature to read it in one sitting and be unable to put it down. That's my goal. You will find each 10 chapters are actually stories in and of themselves.
Well, thank you for being a guest on your own show.
And thank also, I love these affiliates. They treat us well. We're on every day in some stations, which is a real honor for what has been a weekly show. And we hope it's a long-term relationship. And I hope I'll be invited on to talk about Madoff Talks after April 27th.
All right, Jim, thank you.